I want to welcome everyone to the event, The Impact of Intersectional Identities on Women Veterans Needs. My name is Anna Claudia. I'm the Global Outreach Manager, and I'm a Navy retired veteran. I also want to take a moment to introduce our Executive Assistant at the Center for Women Veterans, Mr. Chris Wenger. I would like to welcome the Director for the Library of Congress Veterans History Project, Ms. Monica Mohindra. Ms. Mahindra is the Director of the Veterans History Project at the American Folklife Center of the Library of Congress. Monica leads the Veterans History Project team on collections, preserving, and making accessible the firsthand narratives of U.S. military veterans so that we all have collective sense of our shared history.
Good morning, everyone. I'm so glad that you could be here with us today in our nation's library, your library. And it's your library for lots of reasons, and I have to thank Lourdes and the whole team at the Center for Women Veterans for helping us help you understand your larger role here. For those of us who were able to be here today, I want to particularly point out how glad I am you were able to take the tour. The tour of this, our nation's library, which is the largest with over 178 million collections across knowledge, culture, and history, and imagination. Think about that. When we come and we take these tours and we talk about the Library of Congress across the nation, we often focus on how beautiful the building is, the history of how it got here, and what it means as a symbol. But because you've been here to see it, I'd like you to think about what that actually means. It is spanning centuries of culture and knowledge and creativity, and by the way, yours. And I don't just mean that because you are going to access it from here on out, because you know it's yours, but because you are going to participate. And you're going to participate, this sounds more like I'm telling you what to do. It's an invitation. You're going to participate because you want to contribute your story, because you want to get the story of the women and other veterans in your life and make sure that they're part of the record of human impact here at the Library of Congress for our nation to understand. I'm so glad that you were able to witness that for yourselves, and for anyone who's watching us otherwise, go to the website. You get some of that magic there as well. I'm glad you're here today to hear from these extraordinary people, to hear their stories and understand how we're all connected to our collective history, not just through the Veterans History Project, but through these individual stories of our narrative experience. Having the Veterans History Project as part of the American Folklife Center at the Library of Congress is no coincidence. It is a deeply intentional idea. We have over 120,000 individual stories of veterans' experience. You know what we need more of? Women. Please help us with this mission, because it's only by getting the full picture of service and what all of that service encompasses that we understand the challenges service members have faced and will face, but perhaps more importantly, their contributions. Women's contributions have been part of our military service in every conflict, every conflict. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, but I'm excited to stand here today having been able to witness the posthumous commissioning as Brigadier General of Harriet Tubman. And what I learned on Veterans Day about Harriet Tubman is something we all need to understand about our experiences and how we're connected to each other, which is that as a service member, Harriet Tubman was a laundress. Harriet Tubman was a cook. Harriet Tubman was a nurse, and she was lauded by her service members for all of that, and she wore those titles proudly. Turns out, you probably know, she was also a spy and a scout and held arms and led a battle that freed over 700 enslaved people on a military battlefield. You're connected to that. You either served or you know someone who did, and you are part of that lineage, and that history touches you. So when you go to our website, which you'll do, please look at the stories. You can search the collections. There's thousands of hours of audio and video of U.S. veteran service, including women. But we're here today to have this important conversation about the intersectional identities and how that influences, impacts, and advances women veterans' experience. I'm so glad to be able to turn the mic over to Lourdes and the extraordinary panelists gathered here before you today. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for being an ambassador for the Veterans History Project at the Library of Congress.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And honestly, the first thing I want to say is just thank you to my staff and my team. Like, literally, this does not happen without them. I'm just there to help unblock the roadblocks they might have, but truly it is them that carries the water for all of this. So just an applause first for my team. So thank you so much for all of you for being here, especially our esteemed panelists who hopefully you will find inspiration, hope, but also different perspectives in how we look at this particular topic. The impact of intersectional identities on women veterans not only looks at the first dimension of race, ethnicity, sexuality, but it's also about the experiences that we have, our roles that we play as mother, as daughter, as aunt, as teacher, as a guide, as a mentor, but also some of those other experiences and issues that we know women veterans also face. Homelessness, a lack of access for education, being in a rural area, living in another country, living in a territory. These are all different identities that our women veterans face, and some of them suffer in silence. And all of these various experiences actually impact how women veterans show up, how they ask for help, but also how they don't ask for help. This is also part of the reason for why the Center for Women Veterans exists. It's not only to unearth and highlight some of these different areas and dimensions, but it's also how do we position the Department of Veterans Affairs and all the resources and community partners and stakeholders to be more agile, to be more responsive to those various and unique needs. I'm sorry to Sina, I don't always follow scripts. This important conversation is incredibly, I found the first one incredibly meaningful when we had then Chief of Staff Tanya Bradshaw, now Deputy Secretary Bradshaw. It was the first time that we held this particular conversation, and there was so much clamor for a follow-up. And so we are now doing this on an annual basis because intersectionality doesn't only impact one dimension, it's many dimensions across various areas. And so there is a rich conversation that we will be able to have and also to have a dialogue on. And every time we do this on an annual basis, we will have various different panelists bringing different perspectives. But this year, I am very excited to bring in our distinguished panel of leaders from all sectors of our society who have passionately dedicated themselves not only to championing the rights and the needs of women veterans, but also they have been there to live those experiences as well. So you'll learn a bit about their lives, how they've taken those, harnessed those experiences to something that hopefully you can take away as a nugget to bring back to your own communities. First, we have the Honorable Sean Scally. She is the Deputy Undersecretary for Defense for Personnel and Readiness. Her vital work has a profound impact on the policies that impact our military personnel. Joining us as well is Aisha Harris. She is the founder of Caring Souls for Veterans. Her innovative leadership and devotion have opened new avenues for emotional and psychological support for veterans, and we are grateful for her presence today, and also such a fabulous outfit. We're also delighted to have Ms. Catherine Martinez from the Travis Manion Foundation. Travis Manion Foundation is known for its unwavering support and commitment to empowering women, veterans, and veterans overall, as well as their families. In our discussion today, we will be exploring intersecting identities of women veterans, including aspects like race, ethnicity, sexuality, gender, and more, to consider how these various dimensions play a significant role in not only our lives during service, but also after service. Understanding these complexities is necessary as we work to create a more inclusive environment and to create policies that are equitable for women veterans. So as we begin this meaningful dialogue, let's remember and make sure that we are embracing intersectionality not just by acknowledging those identities, but it is also about taking action. We have a shared responsibility to ensure that every women veteran not only receives the respect, the dignity, and recognition that they have earned, not just deserve, they have earned it. There's over 2 million women veterans that are living. Less than 2% of the nation serves, and only a fraction of that percentage are women. By the very nature of being a fraction of that smallest fraction of the nation that bears the nation's defense, we are all already in a special group. So thank you for not only being here, for showing up, for your commitment, but also for bringing your voices and your hearts to this conversation. So before we start on the meaty part of the conversation, I will ask first to everyone, tell us something. I know that the audience probably saw your bios already, but tell us something that is not on your bio that's relevant to this topic, and why do you think this topic is important and relevant today? This is not the meaty part.
I'll be the brave one here. I can go ahead and start. First, I want to thank you for creating a space for the conversations, because I do feel that too often we have the exact same conversation in so many different corners of the room, but we never bring it together. So thank you for creating a space where I hope that the message that we share today, someone says, oh, me too, and it's okay. Your point about the intersectionality, I am more than my resume, so I'm sure you saw my bio, and I'm a single parent. I am the proud mother of Dylan Christopher. He's a 17-year-old, so if you see me in the corner crying in about 6 months, you know my baby's off at college. But these aren't the conversations that we have at work. You know, I have a dog named Des that I'm trying to figure out what am I gonna do with him when Dylan goes to college, right? So we don't have these kind of conversations, but being a single mom and the mom of a teenager and having a dog, trying to learn that whole dog ownership piece, that's a lot to manage. So that's part of my intersectionality that you haven't seen in my bio.
Thank you.
Lourdes looked at me, so I'm going next. So, hi, I'm Catherine Martinez. My bio is very short in that pamphlet, but I like to believe that my actions speak a lot more than I could ever put into words. So I hope in this conversation you learn more about me, but something that's not on there that I'm very proud of is that I'm a hiker. As a woman, I'm sure many of us have experienced that we can't solo travel because it feels unsafe as a woman. And so I take a lot of pride of being intentional in planning my trips, but also learning how to protect myself. So I'm hopeful that that's something that could grow and expand to empower other women to do the same, because our world is such a beautiful place. Intersectionality is an important topic to me, is that as we get into the discussion, I belong to many parts of our community, and some of these things put me with bigger hurdles than anybody else, but I've overcome them. And I keep those in mind in all the work that I do, and I feel that all of us can be a little bit better and more mindful of practicing intersectionality in the work that we do, because sometimes when we look at the history of intersectionality itself, it pertains to the right for women to vote, When women got the right to vote, it was just white women. Intersectionality made it so that Black women, Asian women, and Latino women can also vote. So it's a very important topic to me, so thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this conversation.
Thank you. I'm going to make a quick plug since she talked about hiking. If you did not know that veterans have the ability to get a lifetime membership through the National Park Service. Quick plug.
My turn? My turn, thank you. Not in my nauseatingly long bio in the pamphlet. And actually, it flashed and came up on the lovely tour. And thank you to the library staff for offering us the tour before this. When we were looking at the Thomas Jefferson collection, which was really kind of breathtaking to look and see the books that were originally his, that he actually held and touched and went into that brain that led into the founding documents of our country. But I guess I'm not ashamed because I'm going to say it out loud now. But the way it was arranged in all the books and in his particular taxonomy, how he came up with his own arrangement for those books, and how there were plastic cases denoting the books that have not yet been acquired in the library's pursuit of closing out Jefferson's full collection. It took me back to the thing that is not in my bio, which is my passion for rock music. And in that collection with all these books, and then there's a plastic thing starkly in the middle of it noting that it's not yet in the collection yet, I was like, oh, this is just like the 930 Club, where they have every show that had ever played in the 930 Club is in this kind of vestibule off to the side of one of the bars. And so every show in chronological order, and the album, it's CD cases, and the album that was being toured on by that band at that time. And they don't have a CD for every show yet. So there's a white kind of one that stands out. And you can get tickets. If you can find that CD for a show that's missing, you can get free tickets to the club. Because it's the place where I go to find my joy. Where, and we work somewhat long hours in the Pentagon. But to be in the middle of 930 Club with 1,000 strangers, but also fellow Americans and fellow travelers, and be focused on the same thing. And it's a place where I'm listening to music, all of a sudden I feel myself smile. And it's like, yeah, this was worth it. I'm going to cry in the morning when I get up again, like 4 hours later. But it was that reconnection to a thing that keeps me going in those times. And it just saddens me that I just connected that to Thomas Jefferson. But that's where it goes. So thank you.
Thank you so much. So, little nuggets that you don't always get to hear and know about some of these various leaders and esteemed panelists that you hear. So I like to always bring the personal touch first, so that we can then dive into a little bit more of the meaty sections and also give a little perspective to why they approach things the way they do. So the next part is, prior to your military lives, how did your various identities impact not only your experiences while you were still a civilian, and then how did it impact your military trajectory and then your experiences today?
I'll go first.
Brave soul.
So I'm a first generation American. English is not my first language, it's my second. Before I joined the military, so I'm thinking in that sense of lenses, I was brought up in a traditional Hispanic household. There were a lot of expectations of women, but none of them were ever to end up on a stage like this. It was to be a homemaker. It was to be a mother. It wasn't to go to college. For sure wasn't joining the military. Because a woman's job was to be a caregiver and a nurturer. I had siblings, but I had to take care of them. I had to be a translator from a young age. So I felt like a grown-up from a very young age. But as I transitioned to military service, I feel that this came in handy a lot. I joined the military a little bit later. I joined when I was 20, and it was funny, when I was at boot camp, I was asking people like, hey, what should I order when I turn 21? Because that was coming up soon. And I realized my experiences were helpful because I was always the first one to help someone when they didn't know how to fold their skivvies or their underwear for non-Navy people. Or it was making sure that there was no Irish pennants or the little strings sticking out of their uniforms. I was always one to help someone else because I felt if we were all good, we weren't gonna get beat later. I don't mean physically beat, but like we're doing workouts over and over and over again. So my early life really bled into my military life by giving me leverage that being a nurturer and someone who's caring and compassionate is a leadership quality and strength that isn't talked about enough, and oftentimes women are criticized for. That makes you a weaker leader if you show these things, but was able to really exercise that. So that's how I would describe that.
I love that. And one of the things that really resonated with me from what you just said is, one, I'm also a first generation, an immigrant, didn't speak English when I came here. So, and I literally had to fight for my citizenship while I was in the military. So I absolutely love that you bring that different perspective of the different types of people that make up our military and consequently our veteran community.
When it comes to my identity before and through, I grew up when I hit teen years and like, do I want to be a doctor, a lawyer, cowboy, astronaut, what have you. I landed on wanting to fly airplanes off of aircraft carriers. I grew up on Long Island, which back then was the heart of aircraft manufacturing, specifically for the Navy, largely for the Navy. And so at 15, wound up visiting my first aircraft carrier, sold, done. I'm pursuing that. And that was a singular focus that I wish I could get back in my life at times. It's not healthy to be that way all the time, but that was all that drove me. And I was the dog who caught the car in terms of getting an ROTC scholarship, going to college, all with the focus of get to flight school, then with the focus of get to a carrier airplane. Get through that, get to the fleet and fly for real off of aircraft carriers. But that journey, I didn't become a fuller person until after I hit that point. And it's like, oh, now what? I never went further. I grew up in New York, never went further than the closest part of Tennessee, Knoxville, Tennessee. I think I did the math for some reason a few weeks ago, never went to 5 states before I joined the Navy, and went all the way to South Carolina. The first time I left the United States was going into Tijuana, Mexico, after I had gotten my wings and gone to San Diego for follow-on training. That was the first time I left the country. I'd been to 5 states before getting my scholarship and becoming a midshipman, not quite fully joining the Navy, but getting a check. And now it took me, join the Navy, see the world was the slogan back then. I wound up seeing 40 more states, 41, 42 more states. I learned about the country I was defending while serving it in a way that I hadn't before. I was a nerd and a geek and could give you the encyclopedia backwards and forwards, because when I got in trouble, my mom sent me in my room and the only book I could look at was the encyclopedia. I spent a lot of time with the encyclopedia. But I started to figure out who I was besides just this pursuit while serving and seeing the world and gaining the appreciation for the America that I was seeing while going around. And it really kicked off things that maybe should have happened a little bit earlier or could have, should have. And I've come to understand that, and it helped me with a larger lifelong journey. But I think we're always on lifelong journeys of learning and experience, and trying to stay open to new things. So serving was the thing I wanted more than anything else, but I'd be nothing without it. We all know there's no free lunch when you serve your country, and you take a lot of other things with you. But it's given me the gift of being open and growing.
I love that. I also loved how you talked about the various states, because I'm sure that as you met so many different people from various microcultures within the nation, you also learned and grew from that. Aisha?
Sure. I like to say or share when I was growing up in Brownsville, Brooklyn. I have been talking about Brownsville a lot lately. And I have to give that place where I grew up, where many wouldn't be too proud of that because it's a true inner city. And growing up in the 70s and 80s in New York City, don't tell anyone how old I am, but but during that time, you're growing up in a space where education wasn't prioritized because your survival was more important than anything. And I grew up in a household, fortunately, I had both my parents, and they protected me to no end. So I used to say as a little girl, I'm from Brownsville, never ran, never will. And I never would have thought that I needed to take that with me to Afghanistan because I was so scared. Growing up in Brownsville instilled me with a level of resilience, courage, and pride that has carried me into my military career and taken me in spaces that I never even envisioned. And in my house, my dad, the courage and the confidence he gave me, I have to share the funny story because growing up in an inner city, we don't have much to do. So there's always someone to help you discover your best. So we had dance groups and we would sing and we would dance and we would do all these fun things. Now I have 2 left feet and I have an amazing voice. So one time we had a performance to do and one of the girls had to drop out. So I went from 1 singing part to 2 singing parts. So I thought that I could really sing. So I would walk through the house and just sing and sing and sing. And I do have a beautiful voice for the shower. And I would sing and sing and sing. And my mother, who was a realist, she had all these explicatives and all these colorful words to say about my singing. And my dad would say nothing but look like he was in pain. But he would never say anything to me until I turned 21, and I thought I had it all. I was ready. I'm in the military now, and I'm singing. I'm sharing my vocals with the world. And he said, baby girl, you can sing. You just don't sound good when you do it. And I share that because of the boldness and the courage that I took throughout my military career because my dad and my mom instilled that level of protection in me and the ability to just dream that you can do anything that you want. And I took that into the Air Force and it allowed me to obtain my nursing degree, but there was a lot of the fun things that came with that. So that growing up in New York City is what gave me the courage to be able to do all the things that I did in the military.
Such a great segue, but also, we did not plan that everyone's like New York area type folks. In case you didn't catch that, there's a lot of...
I'm from California, so don't worry. There's West Coast representation.
Yeah, true. So that's a great segue because all of the things that y'all have heard, I sound like I'm from Texas and I'm not. But so you've heard about some of the journeys before they were in the military, but now we're going to delve a little bit into how your intersectional identities played a part in your military lives. So for the next thing I want to dive into is how do I say this? How or what types of challenges did you encounter or have to overcome with regard to whether it's leadership or opportunities while in the military because of your identities?
So I was junior enlisted in the Navy, and I was a sonar technician. And the sonar technician rating in general hasn't really been open to women very long. When I was going through A school or technical school, I met some of the first women to get senior enlisted rank. And so that meant a lot to me, and to be able to see I have a projection path for leadership in the future. I was ecstatic. But when I hit the fleet, one of the first things that my division told me was like, I looked you up on social media. I wanted to see what you look like. I wanted to see the type of person that you were and find out if you were single or not. I was married at the time. I'm divorced now, but that was intimidating to hear, like, first day on the ship, that they didn't look at my qualifications that came on my eval that transferred over. They were just trying to find anything that they could use against me. And I will be honest, I've gotten braces since I've gotten out of the military, so people were making fun of my teeth, the way I smiled, even though personally I felt my smile was the most beautiful thing about me at the time. So I was already being targeted for something I couldn't change in the next 5 minutes, which I personally believe if I can't change in the next 5 minutes, please don't tell me. So that's kind of like what it felt like to be a woman first walking on board the ship. And then unfortunately, I am a survivor, so unfortunately, I may share that with some of you in this room. And it just felt like there wasn't any chance of success for a woman of color. But I did have some really great mentors that I found along the way that believed in me, that told me that I can change things. And unfortunately, one of those mentors died by suicide. When she passed, I made it my personal mission to be more educated and informed when it came to resources for suicide prevention. And that's something that I would go on to champion the rest of my career before I was medically separated. So once I found something that I would say, good at, which was teaching other people and informing them of their rights, entitlements, and benefits when it came to access to medical care, I found myself thriving. I was given more opportunity. The people who didn't believe me before started to believe me then. And to the point that I actually got to give a presentation as an E4 to the whole khakis mess, or chief's mess, E7s and above for non-Navy people. And that was such an empowering experience. And then again, unfortunately, there was tragic loss at my command. I was out of the military by then, but I was active duty at that command because I was a federal employee at the time. And the CO came straight to my desk and he's like, I need your help. So that just showed how much over time, like, my leadership came to show because my passion and my work started to translate over into the activities I was doing. And I feel like I wouldn't have been able to start had I not gotten that first exposure on the ship. Even though it was a negative experience, I got into the mindset of, like, I'm going to prove you wrong. And then to the point that I'm going to prove you wrong, that I will be everywhere you look, but nowhere to be found to you. So that's something I turned on to champion, and it's gotten me here, so.
So if y'all were listening to all of that, and then you look at her, how young she is, like, that is a lifetime's experience for someone who's on the outside. And that is instilled in, I'm not going to say, because I don't know your age, but I'm just saying, in seeing that in someone who is so young and also growing up to be already a leader within the veteran community. So thank you for just turning that pain, those negative experiences into something that empowers you, and also not always being a victim, but also thriving, and not just surviving, but truly thriving and leading. So thank you. All right, I'm gonna just throw it open to anyone else.
I can go next. I would say that my ability to dream just kind of kept me going throughout the whole time I was in the military. It was good and bad, because when I first walked through the door, I remember meeting my supervisor, and I have to shout her out today still. I just did a podcast with Dog Tag Diaries, and we talked about my upbringing and in the military and how I became a nurse. And I had to talk about my education, because that's the only reason why I joined the military, in full transparency. So God would have me join the military and help me grow to an amazing woman, and thank you for that, Lord. So I met Sergeant Handy, and I go into the office because my recruiter said, I know everyone has that recruiter said story, but my recruiter told me that I could go to school at night and I could work during the day. So, of course, he didn't tell me that they would yell at me in basic training. He didn't tell me any of those things. So after surviving basic training and I made it to Langley Air Force Base, I remember meeting Staff Sergeant Handy at the time. And I said, hi, my recruiter said that I can go to school, so where's the school? And Staff Sergeant Handy from Louisiana, she looked at me and she said, girl, look at here. And then she took me to the side, and what she shared was, you can go to school, but you have these things called military requirements, right? Your career development courses. And I said, that's nice. Like, my recruiter didn't talk about that, so I don't want to hear about that. But what she shared with me was, you can go to school and you can do your CDCs, but as soon as something goes wrong, you have to stop with your CDCs. And I'm like, challenge accepted. I'm from Brownsville, right? Never ran, never will, I'm here. So she challenged me with that, and proudly enough, I was able to start school. So I got there in October, I was in school in January, and my whole career was all school. I may have stopped to apply to another college, but that's all I did my whole career. And because of Staff Sergeant Handy, I like to say it took me 20 years to get a PhD, but it was because of her believing in me. But it was first my dad giving me the ability to dream and know that no is not a thing in our house, and you won't tell me no either. So I kind of went through my military career like that. It worked until I became a nurse. So then I had to find a way to navigate that because it was a different expectation. And I was always bothered by the fact that I walk in day one into the Air Force. I didn't know them, they didn't know me. I'm from Brooklyn, and now I have a job, but my job is school, so I don't understand what you all are doing here. So I take that mentality with me into nursing, and when I'm ready to get my master's degree, guess what? The schedule couldn't support it. How? How was that possible? We work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Somebody's going to find a way to get this schedule to support me and my dreams, because it didn't make sense to me. You know, you come in, the same work ethic, you work hard, the same mentality to do great things. I still care for people. Why is it that you couldn't support me? So it was great up until that moment. And I have been able to navigate this space for so long, but the one thing that I can say is that I've been able to impact every space that I entered, and I was able to go into the military to get what I required of myself, and that was education, and I exceeded that far more than I anticipated. So being able to overcome those obstacles of hearing, no, this doesn't work, and I'm thinking, yes, it does, because it can. And I made it work, and I continued on those efforts. So I just want to shout out to my enlisted people and those that believe and dream and support others in their dreams. Please continue to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Truly, the impact of even just one person believing in you, like, stays with you for the rest of your life. Sean, have any stories for it?
Oh. This is an all ages video, right? Okay, checking. No, when I think of, I'm grateful for the conversation that we had last week in preparation for this, which makes me start, I'm always grateful for whenever we do those opportunities, have those opportunities to prepare, and also it stimulates the thought as to how can one contribute. And even now, just listening, what I thought I might say is already kind of morphed, and which is the beauty of these events. When I think about a leadership journey, I served in a segregated, I joined up and joined a segregated military, all male units. I mentioned, hey, I made it to the fleet, I flew off aircraft carriers, all male, 5,000 dudes. Yeah, even in the moment. Gross. It only gets worse with age. So it was from that environment, I got the highest thing I could think of was to then go be a flight instructor. And I became a flight instructor on my aircraft in 1994. Well, just 6 months or maybe 9 months before that, the Secretary of Defense authorized women to fly in combat-coded squadrons and combat-coded aircraft. So, the world is going to change. I went to flight school with women, but they immediately branched off into different places post-graduation, and you didn't see them again. Not in my aircraft. Some flew fighters, but they did not fly fighters that deployed, for example. But we were going to get the first classes of women straight from flight school to learn how to fly our aircraft and go to the fleet as part of that integration. I became a flying leader in my first tour, a mission commander and a strike, an airstrike leader. And I knew what I thought leadership looked like and what leaders look like, how they conducted themselves and what they said and how they postured and how good they were at doing the things. In the Navy at that time, especially Navy Air, we didn't teach leadership. It was thrust upon you if you survived the task to put you in front of a couple people. You were given no real skills. There was just the power of example. And if you were fortunate, those leaders were good to some degree. So I thought I knew what that looked like. And then all of a sudden, the world changed because all of a sudden all these women showed up. Just a handful, but in each class, each successive class. And what I noticed was how we did things changed, not for the good, but different. As was mentioned, asking questions of students that weren't asked of the students 6 months before, personal questions. Hey, do you want to go on the road over the weekend? All of a sudden became a competition. All of those things, and it just struck me, it was so stark that why, and I've always been kind of Pollyannish and an idealist without even realizing it. Like, why are these things changing, and why are you up in that fleet replacement pilot's face about these things when I saw you not care the last class that went through? And I didn't, it didn't connect for me at the time, but I knew something was changing, and challenged me as to what leadership looked like when you weren't briefing a formation of jets and when you weren't leading in the air and telling somebody to, get where they were supposed to be and be on time and all that sort of stuff. And it got me into the space of understanding what, not the orders that you were given, not the things that were explicit, but the things that are implicit as to looking out for people and paying attention to that kind of leadership by how you conduct yourself, and not how you conduct yourself loud and demonstrative, showing plumage like, evolutionary animals do, but how you connect with people and bring them with you in that way just began to dawn on me, though, as I now recognize it. And it wasn't until I was in 2004 that I even saw another person of my rank in a leadership position who was a woman, right? It took 10 years for me to have that interaction of equals in leaders and performers in that way, and then see more senior leaders from that time. And I'm grateful for that. Essentially, it was a challenge, challenging your paradigm, challenging your understandings as to how big you are, how tall you are, what you sound like, where you come from. Brooklyn represent. Bay Ridge. 99th Street. It's, and it's the eternal thing, and I think we'll be coming back to it again and again. Why are you there? You're there to do a job alongside each other, not let each other down. There are very few tasks where you can't let somebody else down and there could be some kind of failure or even worse. And success is based on lots of people working together in many different ways, and that's what matters. Not, there's military bearing and comportment and all that stuff. But it's not who you are, it's what you're contributing. Who you are matters because it enables you to contribute. And it took me the better part of 20 years to begin to appreciate that before I could even make it explicit. But I was fortunate to be able to watch it and then take those things with me, then be able to go back and access them and kind of, be more mindful of them and use them.
Thank you. So I know that we're running a little bit behind. So I'm going to try to, we talked a little bit about your military experience. So we're going to transitioning to civilian life. So we know that many veterans, but particularly women veterans, face a lot of the various unique challenges, whether it's retiring, separating into civilian life. So as a member of, and I include women veterans as part of marginalized communities, as part of a member or a part of a marginalized community, what are some of the unique challenges or barriers that you face when transitioning out? And, you know, how did your identity impact how you sought support?
As I mentioned, I grew up in a traditional Hispanic household, and that comes with a lot of nuances. Part of it is machismo culture. There's a lot of pride instilled in you. I was medically discharged. I did not get to finish my contract, but by barely. And by barely, I mean my DD-214 says I served 3 years, 11 months, and 5 days, so couldn't finish it by 25 days, and that ate at me. And at the time of my transition, which was the end of 2019, a lot of media culture, not like saying news channels put it out, but within our own community, people were saying you weren't a veteran if you didn't finish your contract. So I didn't claim my veteran identity at first. And being so prideful, I was like, you're right, I'm not, because I didn't finish. And so that was extremely challenging for me. But what changed that was connecting to veteran service organizations. It was when I went to my first national conference with Student Veterans of America, where I spoke to their CEO, Jared Lyon, who, it was really funny looking back at it, and not retrospectively, I was being very awkward about it, but he was asking about my service. He was like, are you a veteran? I said, no. And he's like, well, are you still serving? I was like, no. Well, are you a reservist? And I was like, no. And he's like, well, what's your connection to the military? And I was just like, I served. I just wouldn't say that I was a veteran. That's something I was refusing to say because I didn't feel like I was one. But I left that brief conversation being able to walk away and say, I am a Navy veteran. And that opened the world to me. It introduced me to the Travis Manion Foundation, where I first worked, because they were tabling there. I got to connect with the VA table that was there. That introduced me to a lot more options when it came to getting access to care. I live with an invisible disability. I live with a traumatic brain injury, and being able to get connected to proper resources was there, but it really took feeling empowered to claim my own identity, and then being able to be exposed and educated about the various resources that made a significant impact to my transition, that now, since I am educated, I share it with other people because I don't believe in gatekeeping. There's so much out there that we can all benefit from. So I feel like being empowered and being educated were some critical moments for me in my transition.
Thank you.
I'll have to say, when I transitioned out of the military after 26 years of serving the world's greatest Air Force, I like to say, I went to every store, had my designer attire. I was ready. I walked into spaces, perfume too loud. What? I'm a nurse. My patients didn't even complain about my perfume. Why do you wear heels? You're tall enough. What? Who says that? People. Then I sat on a panel and they said, well, how does it feel to be a Black woman in the military? And I said, wait, I'm from Brooklyn. I am a dreamer. I am a go-getter. Oh, a Black woman, I have to identify as that. When I was on active duty, I didn't feel like I was a Black woman. But when I became a civilian, honey, they made it clear that you are a Black woman. And it became incredibly uncomfortable. And I'm 5'10", how can I be invisible? But people in my workspaces made me feel like that. And I never felt like that on active duty because I was too bold chasing my degree and my education. I didn't care about what was going on around me. And coming out into the civilian community was so daunting for me because I thought I had everything I needed, especially after spending hours in Neiman Marcus. And then this young lady is standing next to me talking about all this money that she spent on her suits. And I'm thinking, will I ever get a job to pay that much money so I can afford those suits? And then coming into a space where I wasn't even accepted for all of who I am, working hard, being smart, none of that mattered, and that hurt a lot. So what did that do? it set me into this deep, dark space. But the good thing was I wasn't the only one. So trying to figure out how to navigate this problem that my mother, and that was the struggle for me, and this is where it becomes sensitive, because my parents gave me my strength and all that you see today. And when I lost them and I encountered a struggle, I didn't know what to do. I did not know what to do. So I'm having conversations with other veterans, having these conversations, and we're loud about it because we're in our corners. Now it's like, for real, you too? Oh my God. So how did you deal with it? And it was that turning moment when I made myself a priority, because I never did that before. Serving in the Air Force, always wanting to be a nurse, I became a nurse to care for other people. And I thought everyone cared, like that's natural, but it's not. And the world is crude. The world is crude, and it was a sad thing for me to discover, but I had to seek mental health. And I remember when I was on active duty and I left Afghanistan, so they do the out processing, and they're like, you need to go see mental health. And I'm like, I'm a nurse, I got this, I'll talk to myself. And then I remember, the technician saying, you really need to get help. And I'm like, whatever. But then after that, I dealt with 2 suicides. And I can wrap this up quickly to share. But we had, one was 11 months before I retired. So the 11-month situation occurred in a training environment. And then the person that found that person that hung himself in the training environment, he later committed suicide. So now I'm leaving the military with guilt because I should have done something different. And I never dealt with it. I did try to go to mental health, but I cried all the time, and I just couldn't talk. And she was like, oh, maybe next session, maybe next session. And so by the time I become a civilian, and one thing goes wrong, I lose it. All because I never dealt with the first part of the trauma. Because in New York City, who needs help? If you go see a mental health provider, you're crazy. I'm not crazy. So I had to deal with that. And now I just encourage people to take the step, to care for yourself, because if you can't do that for you, what good are you? And I advocate now for veteran suicide, particularly in the healthcare community, because we care for each other, but who cares for us? And being able to have these conversations about self-harm, self-doubt, and making sure that you understand that you're never, ever, ever alone. And those resources that you once had, like for me, my mom and my dad, they're gone. But now I have a whole other community to have different conversations with. So thank you for letting me share that.
John? Okay. Mindful of your time.
It's okay.
Okay. I transitioned out of the Navy and then started a different, separate, all too told transition, but it drove me to an extent underground as a veteran. The Navy gave me a bachelor's degree, or allowed me to earn a bachelor's degree, a master's degree. As I mentioned, it took me around the United States. It took me around a good part of the world. It gave me the viability for future employment that I'm still sort of living off of now, in a sense, because my experience of 20 years in the Navy has formed the core of my, at the very least, my professional identity. But I had more me stuff to deal with. And at the same time, I retired from active duty in 2008, 7 years after 9/11. And it was October of 2008, so it was really 7 years after 9/11. I missed that due to the rotation of my career. I had left my squadron on September 6th, 2011 in Singapore. And on September 11th, I was showing up for my second day of work back home in San Diego before going to the War College, and they were just entering the Indian Ocean when 9/11 happened. And I immediately went to the wing commander who was holding on to me for a couple of weeks till I moved to Rhode Island, and I said, send me back right now. My flight gear is still on the ship. I'm still qualified. I'm still a strike lead. Let's go. The nation's at war. No, go to school. And I bear still to this day some guilt that the folks I served with had helped train, and they went off to carry that burden. And we had had years of folks fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan by that point, who needed what they had earned and deserved from VA. And I had gotten all those things from my service, and I was busy with me and busy with my budding corporate career that wound up flaming out anyway. But I just didn't identify as a vet, in different causes, but in the same way, because I wasn't feeling it. It took me years to get back to that place to understand. And part of that is my acknowledging my veteran status that earned, as you mentioned at the beginning, earned and deserved, helps lift up others, because we shouldn't be alone. The worst condition is to believe that you're alone with whatever you're dealing with. And I'm fortunate and better off and well off due to my service. However, we all took something with us in that way.
Thank you. One thing that I wanted to pull out of that, if you guys didn't kind of catch that, is number one, women veterans identifying as a veteran is one of the major hurdles that we have, not just at VA, but as a nation. There are so many women veterans for a variety of reasons that some of them you've heard, that they do not identify as a woman veteran. And if they don't identify, we cannot connect them to the services that they have and the benefits that they've earned. So one thing I'll implore for you all is just ensure that if you have a sister veteran that you know, make sure that they say that loud and proud. I'm going to go to probably one of the last questions that we have here is, what are some of the culturally competent, I'd say, whether interventions or programs that you think are necessary when addressing the unique needs of women veterans, especially in accessing mental health care?
I think one of the most important culturally competent practices that should be is including women in the conversation. That is the most important part, because there are so many conversations where I see men fill the room and not a single other woman in the room. So I feel a good practice is having the women you're seeking to assist in that space, and then diversify that audience, whether they are Asian, Black, African American, Latina, Native American, etc. Being able to have women share and express their voices is the most powerful practice that will make all the difference, whether it's for mental health care or medical care in general.
Thank you.
I like that, and I'll add to that, understanding history. Because if you don't understand the history, you're likely to repeat it. And understanding from a Black woman's perspective, the fact that generational activities, and we're trying to get rid of Black history education in our system, but being able to have that conversation and know why Black women don't seek care, or why they might seem aggressive, and whatever other things that people feel. But understanding the history behind why people do what they do, understanding that is critically important. And our providers are extremely smart. Yeah. Honestly, let's talk about the time that they have to see patients. Running clinics in my past, we have like 15 minutes to see a patient. Mm-hmm. How am I going to know that you come from all of this trauma? How do I have time to take to read your chart? So perhaps a system that allows for time for the providers to get to know their patients. I think that's very helpful too.
I have a stand-up routine when I go out on the road and visit service members, installations, units, and I'm from the Pentagon and here to help. But the Pentagon, in being part of the Department of Defense, automatically puts women at risk, greater risk than their male counterparts. We know it. It's fact. It's tragic, but it's real. It's part of the human condition of things as sexual assault, sexual harassment, and the like. And I think when you talk about competencies and care that veterans earn and deserve, historically, over time, the greatest risk to the well-being of a woman service member is a male service member. with the injuries that they take that they're going to need care for after they leave the department. Where I work, for personal readiness, we're responsible for all the policies that oversee the total force. And DOD, one of the things we do from the time you put your hand up and say, I do, is you're on track to becoming a veteran.
Yep.
Sooner or later, you're going to be a veteran. And America writ large, even our fellow veterans, do terribly at recognizing who's a veteran. It's going to that identification and making it known and accepting it. Because the greatest barrier to that care is being seen as a veteran and be given legitimacy for what ails you. And that it happened in the service of your nation, so therefore it can't be challenged and it has to be addressed. No leader is good unless they quote leaders more senior to them. President Biden says it all the time. It is our nation's sacred obligation. He takes it from President Lincoln. It's our sacred obligation to care for those who serve us in uniform. Absolutely so. Likewise, and I think it dovetails right off of that, Secretary McDonough in updating the department, the Veterans Affairs mission statement. President Lincoln venerated in this very building. I read books about President Lincoln myself and how amazing a leader he was. But his words had to be modified to accurately represent the mission of the Department of Veteran Affairs to include all of those who served us, not just him who served. Because everybody in this room is anybody that looks like everybody in this room or looks like everybody in this building has the opportunity to have been a veteran based on the stereotypes hurt us. That I've heard it firsthand from close friends walking the halls of VA facilities, and they ask, "Where's your husband?" "No, I'm the veteran." "No, I've gotten myself in leadership positions. You seem like you know this DOD stuff. How'd that happen?" By fellow veterans, right? "Oh, I served." "Oh, that's nice." I mean, the most condescending tone you got. "How long?" 20 years. "Oh, that's nice." "What'd you do?" "I flew off aircraft." "Oh, that's nice." "Oh, give me a break, old man. I got more been there than you do." I mean, but all of that goes into the enduring culture that we have to address individually, every day, all the time. Everything that VA does, it's not on a whim. Everything that you endure while serving deserves response that way. We can never stop. We can never stop holding ourselves to account as leaders and officials responsible for it. The people who deserve that and the people who love them can never stop holding the system to account to do better. Human, large, massive, DOD and VA, the two largest parts of the federal government, huge bureaucracies, which can be strength and can also be, frankly, a challenge. And the only way those beasts move is if you whip on them all the time. And it's that recognition of who deserves it and what it takes to get it done that can never be found satisfactory.
Thank you. One of the things that I've learned in going across the nation in the last 3.5 years I've been in this role is that so many various reasons why women veterans won't identify as a woman veteran. One time, if it happens, someone might say, "You're just being sensitive." If someone questions your veteran status, maybe a couple of times it's just, "Oh, they didn't really mean it, they were just joking." But then when you multiply it at 1,000 times, 100,000 times, in your entire journey, in your entire life as a veteran, after your service, then you start sometimes questioning, well, are you? Because everyone says that you're not. And so this is part of the mandate, the mission. This is part of the reason why we're here. Not only to lift ourselves up and make sure that we own our veteran status, but also to lift and be the voice for the voiceless who do not have that strength. Lightning round, 30 seconds. 30 seconds. One thing that you want this audience to take away that's been most helpful to you.
Get connected to a veteran service organization. There are so many with various missions. I promise you will find one that's right for you.
Understand the value in you. You are truly the VIP. And the VIP is the value and vulnerability, introspection, and the power of the pause. So taking an opportunity to know who you are, because you can be a better person in any space if you understand who you are as a woman. Thank you.
30 seconds.
And the power of togetherness. It doesn't have to be a group as large as this. It can just be one. It doesn't have to be in person. It can be, we have too many ways to get a hold of each other now. But those are lifelines that then can become tow ropes, and also can be things that you use to climb stuff at the same time. It starts with always reaching out. I still work hard to try and walk that talk, but I have a responsibility to talk that talk and also make sure that we do something that when people do. So always just reach out.
You probably might hear a little bit of what the VA also has as one of our campaigns. Don't wait, reach out. So number one, thank you so much for panelists, not only for the wisdom, for being vulnerable, transparent in all of your journeys, and also providing a bit of nuggets that hopefully our audience was able to take away. One thing that I want to, as we close, I hope that all of you not only hear or heard the stories of what they went through, but also those lessons that they've learned, not only before they were in the military, but during and then after. It is our responsibility as women veterans within the larger veteran community. Though we are a smaller fraction, we are the fastest growing demographic. I'm going to do a quick pop quiz. How many of you know how many airports are named after women? 2? That's close. 1.5, right? So we got Amelia Earhart, Bill and Hillary Clinton airports. I say this, and I'm, this is not a disparaging VA, it is just a fact. How many of you know how many VA medical centers are named after women? Oh, no, there's a little bit more. There's 5 now. But between the first and second, there's about a 12-year gap of a medical center being renamed after a woman. Second and third, there's about a 30-year gap. Third, fourth, and fifth, about a year and some months. The third, fourth, and fifth was renamed 2021, 22, 23. I say this because the power of us raising our voices, the power of us sharing our stories has profound impact, not only within our community, but in society and our nation. The reason that there's only 1.5 airports, there might be 2, I'm not sure, but last time I checked it was 1.5. The reason is not because there weren't any women that contributed to aviation. It's not because the women veterans didn't bleed or were not patriotic enough. There's only one Medal of Honor woman veteran that was a recipient in the history of this nation. It is not because we weren't patriotic, did not bleed, did not die for this country, but it is certainly because of how society views women's contributions. And it is all up to us to ensure that our stories, our voices are heard and acknowledged and recognized. So thank you to everyone for being here. We appreciate you. Thank you to our panelists.